What's up, gifted family? Welcome to another episode of the show that is the GP YouTube. Just a reminder that if you support what we do here, make sure to go over to giftedperformance.com and sign up for our automated coaching service. For only $1 a day, you'll get access to 15 highly customized training programs, a macronutrient calculator, our meal planning feature that lets you build and save meals based on your macros, as well as access to our private Facebook group. All subscriptions help us in continuing to put out great content to get you to your fitness goals. Thanks for stopping by, and without any further delay, let's get into today's video. Enjoy.
All right, we are back for another episode with myself, Cameron Cheek, and Polly Rocket. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about when you know if you are ready to compete. A very common question in bodybuilding for competitors, for aspiring competitors, is, am I ready to compete? Should I get on stage? Will I be competitive? Am I going to win? Am I going to be able to present an impressive physique? All of those questions that run through your head. And hopefully we're going to be able to provide some clarity so that, you know, when all of this COVID-19 stuff clears itself up, you can kind of pull the trigger on a contest prep if you are ready or not. But let's get a little check-in with Paul and Cam. What have you guys been up to on quarantine?
First,
Paul,
I just want to say I already answered all your questions. The answers were no, and podcast over.
And wrap it up right there. Cam, what have you been up to? What's your favorite quarantine activity right now?
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, video games. Paul, what have you been doing? Masturbating?
Just working, man.
Masturbating.
Working, getting
Fucking
steps
liar.
in, still training.
Wow. What a fucking warrior.
Done. I still get
it done. You haven't been tagging me in your story though, so therefore you haven't been doing shit. All right. So I kind of outlined a little bit on the Are You Ready to Compete? We're just going to run down my little list right here. I'm going to make some comments, then I'm going to let you guys add in. This is going to be the me show today, so you're welcome. You're welcome for being here. All right. So are you ready to compete? Number one thing or number one concern that comes to people's mind, or thing that people bring up, is that they're not muscular enough. You guys hear that concern a lot? I don't have enough muscle on my frame.
The day you started lifting is the day you're forever small.
That first day you left the gym with that sweet gym pump, that's the biggest you're ever going to be. You'll forever be smaller than that.
Your first few months, you like look at your gains all the time to make sure they're still there. You're like driving, you're like, hell yeah. And then something happens after that point and you're just forever small.
It's called muscle dysmorphia, Paul. You should seek help. Get help. Someone can help you.
So I'm the one over here.
Will 100% back me up too. Paul is your typical, I'm too fat white bikini girl.
Yes, 100%.
I'm too small. It's like, Paul, dude, you're like 5'8", 5'9", 230 pounds and got lines on you, man. You'd be all right.
226. All right, so in terms of serious answers to this question, the first thing that I put here is going to be that if you are competing in bodybuilding as a men's bodybuilder, you don't have to worry about if you are muscular enough, because there's this wonderful thing called weight classes, where everyone in your weight class weighs very similar to you. Is it a benefit to be at the top of your weight class? Yeah, of course it is. But if you get shredded, you will give yourself a chance to win. So Paul is going to be what weight class? What weight class are you going to be, Paul?
I will either be at the top of light heavies or I'll be the smallest heavy ever.
That's the one. So top of light heavy. So Paul doesn't have to worry about people being bigger or more muscular than him, because he is going to be the heaviest light heavyweight possible on stage. So it doesn't matter too much about muscularity. Now, maybe in your experience, Cam, someone comes to you and they say, hey, I'm thinking about doing a contest prep, but I'm not sure I'm muscular enough. What are some things that you might tell them?
So If you're looking at an open bodybuilder, of course, I know you were speaking on, weight classes being able to dictate, if someone's at an adequate size, if they're big enough or not. But also you have to take into account their height. So, if somebody's 6'2", 6'3", and they're like, oh, I'm 220, my stage weight will probably be like 195. I'll be at the top of light heavies. I'm like, yeah, and then you're going to be at the bottom of the rankings. Like, not a good call, dude. Uh, but no, yeah, I mean, when it comes to that kind of stuff, because you've got Classic too, which is really going to give you, a weight cap based off your height, and really kind of show you, cool, what's the full potential of weight and size that can be held there. And then, when you're looking at size, especially with the females and stuff like that, it's kind of like, are you too? Do you even look like your division? Like, because if you're too big or too small, you can see it straight from the gate whether you need to be in women's bodybuilding, not bikini. What are you doing?
I think you should take
Paul?
structure into account too, because
Yeah.
some people, for instance, and who knows if he's, accurate with reporting his height, but for instance, Breon posted a photo. He said he was like 5'7", maybe 5'8", and then he posted his body weight, and I was like, I'm leaner than him at that body weight, but he looks way bigger than me, you know? He
Yeah,
looks
I
massive.
don't think he's 5'7" or 5'8". I think you would probably have to look at when he won nationals. Did he win nationals as a bodybuilder, or did he win his pro card as a bodybuilder or classic?
I don't know, man.
Do you know? What about Keon? How tall is Keon?
Dude, he's
Oh
like
man,
5'4", 5'5".
Yeah, and is Breon that much
I
taller
don't
than
know if he's
than?
quite 5'4" short, but I mean he's a shorter guy for sure.
I'd
I
say
might give him
Breon's
5'5",
probably like
5'6".
5'5" or 5'6". Yeah.
Maybe.
So if Breon's 5'5", I mean, the thing about like being really short is it's not super cool on Instagram. Like Paul always says he's 5'8", and what people don't know from behind the camera is that Paul is actually 5'3". People don't know that about him, but he's just a little guy.
Yeah.
Like a little soccer ball. I walk up, kick him. Hey, Paul.
Yeah. But I
I
mean,
think another
Keon's a great
go for it.
example too, in terms of, I mean, the dude looks phenomenal always, but there's just something about like his muscles when he like flexes them. It's just like they transform in front of your eyes, and you're just like, God damn, what just happened? You know?
I think if you take let's say you're doing you look at the pictures from the show from last year. I think a lot of people like to compare themselves to like national level shows, but if it's your first time competing, don't compare yourself to the people on the national level stage. Just look at the people who placed well in the show that you did last year and how well your physique compares to them. Especially if you're in one of these like non-weight class divisions, if you're in one of the height divisions, make sure you stack up well against them. If you're like, holy shit, I'm so much smaller than all of these people, then it might be time to kind of just sit back, gain some extra muscle mass, and then compete when you're actually ready. But I think, and Paul and I can probably go back and forth on this one, is that people get into this trap of where they think that they're never actually going to be muscular enough, and then they never actually pull the trigger on competing. They're always like, oh, well, I could always bring up my calves a little bit more. My quad sweep needs to be a little bit bigger. I need to get my hamstrings just a little bit bigger. What I tell people is, if you really want to compete in bodybuilding and you really want to you want to get it done, then just do it. Just see how it ends up. What's the worst case scenario? You get shredded, you look really really cool, you get on stage, all your friends are like, holy shit, how did you even do that? No one really cares that you got third or that you got fifth or anything like that. Just see how you stack up. You're never going to know until you actually do it.
I think a lot of that probably just comes from the pressure of social media and shit. And like everybody thinks that the first time they compete, like they gotta be crazy conditioned, basically look like they're ready to go pro. And what's funny is like in no other sort of competition endeavor or sport does that happen. Like Michael Jordan and all these like great names, like at some points, like they weren't they had to get better,
They sucked. They were
um
bad.
like
I mean, you
so
can go back and look at because I did it earlier with old Jeremy Sayers. We were looking back at Miami Nationals being one of the bigger national shows that we have. And we were looking back on, some of the last 5 years, just their placings and who some of the winners were and stuff. And, you can notice some big name people on there that are up on the Olympia stage nowadays and just, a household, idol for bodybuilders. And you can see them getting like second call outs, third call outs. Then, you look the next year, they're winning the overall, maybe second in their class, first in their class. And I was just trying to tell them, like, these dudes are working their way up too, like not everything's going to be perfect with it. And sometimes the reason you might place behind may be due to size or maybe due to condition. But, talking on structure and stuff, that's bone structure. That's something you're either born with it or you're not. And that I think holds true to seeing real potential in somebody, not necessarily seeing like, oh, he puts on muscle really easy. Maybe like he could do well in bodybuilding, but you get somebody that just genetically has a freaky waist, their limbs look proportion how they need to be, great muscle bellies. That's what true potential is.
Yeah. And I think the one thing I would like to add to that is like a little caveat there is I do feel like with all these newer and sort of more aesthetic or smaller classes, I do think a lot of people do jump the gun there. And I think it's a good idea to pay your dues, put your time in, train for a few years, build something, and you don't have to be like pro ready, but something impressive before you take a stab at it.
And not only to that time off to actually improve your physique, but like practice a lot of trial and error with maintenance phases. Have some cuts in your off season. Talk with your coach, like, do you think there's a time? I know we want to focus on growing right now, but maybe we could have a cut at some point and we could practice, a reverse diet or find out if a recovery diet or reverse might be the best choice for me. And that way, too, you start working up, and you're actually in the pro league, you're going to know how to efficiently work through some of these things that are not just, a contest prep, so that you're able to have and continue to have successful off seasons and, a primer phase for your contest prep, and just learning life balance and simple things that aren't going to have you burning out, nor take a hit on other areas of life or your competitive aspect.
No, those are all really good points. There's a lot to learn and a lot of practice to be had, a lot of skills to acquire. And then another thing I'd say too is, I think a lot of people are just in so much of a hurry, and your young years too, like your first 3 to 5 years of bodybuilding, maybe even your first decade, like you're never going to build mass like that again. So like, I'm not saying you need to wait 5 years until you do your first show, but competing every year or, training for a year or two and deciding to do your first show, like you're burning up that valuable time.
And I will say, for early competitors that are thinking about, well, I'm watching this, maybe I shouldn't compete this year. I was really looking forward to it, but I haven't put in a couple years. And I'll tell my athletes sometimes, there's really two instances that I can fully back up and support an amateur competing. And one is going to be their first time ever stepping on stage, because one, unless you just like to work out and like to get big, you shouldn't take a 3-year off season to be the best bodybuilder you can be if you haven't even competed before and even know you like bodybuilding. I think it's true to go into a show, if you're young and understand you're just doing it for fun to see if you actually like it, do that first show, see if you enjoy it. Know that you might not be the most competitive one there. They have true novice and novice classes for a reason. Then from there, then realize, take a step back. Is this something I actually enjoy doing? And then from there, you'll take the time to put on the size. And the next time, that number 2 reason for stepping on stage should be when you're qualifying for a national show and you're actually going to be a national level competitor.
So I want to make somewhat of a counterpoint to that. And let me know if I'm correctly characterizing your position here. Your position is that the first time you do a competition prep, don't take it too seriously. See if you enjoy bodybuilding, get on stage, just see the whole experience, and then kind of go from there. That's your point?
I mean, I wouldn't say not take it super serious, but if it was somebody like the reason I competed which was at 19 years old, I knew I was going to be way undersized too. I was like 50 something pounds under my weight cap. And I just did it because I was working out all the time. I knew I enjoyed working out, but I needed something competitive. I was even debating potentially even, doing a powerlifting meet one day down the road, just something. And that whole prep, I was like, God, am I really doing this? Am I really getting on stage with a spray tan and like pretty much stripping? And I just was like, well, I'm not going to look back 10 years from now and say, dang, I wish I would have tried that, see if I would have liked it.
So I guess my counterpoint to maybe that wasn't exactly what you said, but for someone who might say, you know what, your first bodybuilding prep, don't take it too serious, just go in there, have some fun, and kind of just navigate your way through it, get the experience, then move on from there, is that there's a really good way to not have fun at a bodybuilding show, and that's to get your ass kicked. To show up super unprepared, look like absolute garbage, get literally last place, and then step off stage and be like, that was fucking terrible. That was embarrassing. My whole family was here. My friends were there. You know what? I'm just never going to do this again. So I think there is a fine line to walk between like, and I think it worked out for you because you were someone who you checked a lot of the boxes of someone who's going to be a successful bodybuilder long term. Is you enjoyed training, you enjoyed the dieting part, you enjoyed the body transformation part, and you were just looking for some sort of competitive avenue to express all of that. Whereas some people say, you know what, I just want to do the competition to get some of the attention, and I'll kind of just piece the rest together. That's when I see it really going bad, and then people place poorly. They talk about, oh, prep fucked me up mentally. I never want to do it again. It's just a terrible thing to do.
So I guess I should have worded it and gave better insight. I wouldn't say, obviously doing it for fun, given that you haven't put a ton of years into it and you're being more realistic with yourself. If you're a freak and you're a competitive person about it too, and, you've got a shot at winning, then go for it, go all out. But, if you're way undersized like I was for my show, I realistically knew, I told Paul, I was like, look, I know I'm going to be undersized, like 100%. So I was like, let's just get peeled. Let's do whatever
Pretty sure that was my idea. I'm pretty sure it was more like, do you think I'm going to be small?
But you still controlled kind of the things that you could control. You got as lean as you possibly could.
Weigh-ins, and he was like, "Oh, do you need to take off like your hoodie and sweatpants?" I was like, "Nah, man, we're good." And
Cam had like a bag of nickels in his pocket.
Given to, you're doing your first show, still make sure you do your research on finding a good coach. Like, because that's a lot of times when people get bad coaches is when they're doing their first show and don't know what they're doing. So obviously you're doing it for fun, but find a coach who's actually going to push you to compete like a competitor should and take you through a prep how it should be. Because
I guess there's kind of two things there, two like things that I see from people there. It's like the moral victory side of bodybuilding. Like there's I did everything I could. I got super shredded, but other people were just bigger than me and they placed better than me. And then there's the people who say like, oh, I got up on stage and that's a victory. And they've got just like, they're just way out of shape. Their coach put them up there when they weren't ready. I think that the way that you did it is a good way to keep someone in the sport around for a while because they focused on what they could control. And then the other is just like this, I'm just gonna kind of naively dabble in bodybuilding once and then never do it again.
For them, I would just say, just let them have their moment and they're going to get their ass wiped one day.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us to the next point. The next concern that people have with doing their first bodybuilding show is, how am I going to get lean enough? Am I lean enough? Am I going to be able to get to that point where my conditioning is competitive with other people that are up there? So maybe, Paul, what do you look for in a person when they're saying, hey, I'm ready to pull the trigger on a prep? What do you look for when you say, am I going to be able to get this person lean enough?
Just seeing their like current conditioning, maybe getting some insight into their experience. And I mean, ideally, I don't know, that's the biggest thing. And then what sort of show timeline they sort of like have in mind and what's realistic, in terms of hey, like I think this person has 20 pounds to lose. Are they going to do it in 12 weeks? Maybe they could, but like that's not something you really want to take a chance with. What I really wish more people would do actually is the standpoint of, hey, still have some sort of like estimated time frame of when you'd like to be ready, and so that there's shows in that time frame, but just start dieting. And then once you kind of get within that, like, okay, this person looks like they're about 10 weeks out or so, like start narrowing down on shows versus like picking a show, things going wrong, maybe, weights, people like mess up, they binge, uh life kind of curveballs and stuff like that. And then you tell them like, hey, you know, we either got to pull out of this show or we got to pick a new show. You like 6 weeks later or something like that, and they're so crushed, and it's like, why? I mean, to me, I don't get it. Like it because the mindset I'm taking with this prep is, okay, if I'm ready, I compete. If I'm not ready, I either don't compete or I pick a later show. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool approach too, where you were talking about, general idea, not a specific date, but let's diet, make sure that we take enough time, but also, if something happens, it's not the end of the world because it's not like people are registering for their show 5 months out. Because too, you could do it that way, and let's say they start getting around that 8 week out look, 6 week out, and you actually do pick a show. Think about when you tell the athlete, okay, cool, let's get on a call. I've got some shows picked out within these, 1 to 3 week variants. Like, imagine how much of a push that's going to give them in motivation wise, pushing through those last, 2 months or so. They're going to be like, cool, we've got a show now. Like, this is getting real. It's going to be an extra little edge that, they might probably need. And during those last couple weeks and months when things are just, zombie mode.
Yeah, and sometimes you just don't want that pressure on you too, to where it's like, okay, we have to lose 1.5 pounds a week, this many weeks out, and then like it doesn't work out perfectly that way all the time. You know what I mean? Like one week you don't lose weight, and then a few weeks later you don't lose weight, and it's like, oh, now you're wondering if you're gonna make it,
Yeah.
So here's the only issue that I have with that kind of style of doing it is that when you give people a very general time frame of like, hey, we're gonna shoot for somewhere around, well, I'll just pick a random date, that July August period. Let's say they're starting their prep in January. You're like, we're gonna shoot for that July August ish area. When they don't have an exact date, sometimes I find that people feel like they can be a little bit more lax with their tracking, their training, their cardio, stuff like that. Of like, hey, well, we don't have a specific date and we can always just push it back. So I'll just, have an extra couple hundred calories here, skip my cardio here. Maybe I won't train or won't do my steps here. And then what you end up doing is just extending the diet for such a long period that you actually are close to the contest date. And the person is so far behind because if they've taken so many of those like mulligans or whatever, that you end up having to rev it up and they've already been dieting for 6 months and they're like, fuck this, I don't want to do this
You're
anymore.
right, and
Sure.
that's a very valuable point, dude. And obviously, if you were going to take that strategy, it would take a certain type of competitor, a certain level of maturity. You probably couldn't just do that with anyone, or even, it's valuable, I think, too, from a standpoint for like a first time competitor, to sort of have that target, and they probably will take it more seriously. And as it gets closer, there's some sort of mental relief. Like they don't get 10 weeks in their diet and they still don't know when they're competing. Like,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
another thing that a coach can kind of use for leverage to, kind of put in the back of the athlete's head too, is if they're an enhanced athlete, you got to look at, you can't just elongate this prep forever and ever because that's just going to negatively impact their health for being on cycle. So you could say like, hey man, look, I would like at least, X amount of weeks that you're on before we compete and a maximum of this amount of weeks. If you do something because we haven't, decided to show like specifically and you mentally are kind of like, oh, I'm going to kind of screw around. Like if you push it back past that date where my maximum limit is for you being on cycle, like it's done. Like
yeah.
competitive season's over for you. You're coming off cycle or going to a cruise and that's it. I'm not going to keep you on for, an extra 1 or 2 months on cycle just because you decide to screw up. Like, that's not on me.
No, timeline is very important with enhanced users, and definitely, I think you would have to be, if you did take that approach, you'd have to be sort of smarter and sort of, definitely at least at 16 weeks out, sort of have that date more narrowed in on, and maybe even, start the prep lower dose or on cruise, and take a milder approach further out. But all of that also, I guess, would depend on, how lean are they, and, how hard is it going to be for them to get to stage weight. Because also, like, when you're enhanced too, and especially at the higher level, that sort of show that you're aiming for, at, you're you're probably going to want to treat it like, it's all or nothing at that point. Like, there is no, oh, we can just do drugs longer. No, we gave this everything. Like that day of that contest show is like, oh, okay, we gave this everything I got. You can't be on drugs any longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think and Paul, you kind of said this, so I'm just gonna kind of reiterate your point. For a beginner, for someone who's like a first-time competitor, they really like, in my opinion or my experience, they like to have that specific date. But for someone like you or someone like Anthony, or when I coach myself, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna shoot for November-ish, and I'm just going to diet because I know that you and I know that Anthony, I know that my more experienced competitors are just going to handle their business day to day, and then we're going to communicate and make manipulations from there. But for a beginner, it's something where they really have to have that. And you guys make a good point in terms of like the timeline of the overall prep of how long you're going to have someone, whether it be doing drugs, whether it be in a deficit, doing cardio, high physical activity levels, things like that. What do you think is the maximum amount that you want to diet straight through? Like minimal refeeds, no diet breaks. I like to put it somewhere in that like 20 to 24 week range, where like anything above 24 weeks, I'm kind of concerned for the individual. Maybe you guys like to go shorter. Maybe you guys like to go a little longer. You hear some natural competitors talking about 32-week diets straight through.
So
What's
this
kind of your upper
is
limit?
going to sound out there, but the longest I'd like to diet someone with no diet breaks and no refeeds would be 12 weeks. The longest I would actually like to diet someone with refeeds and diet breaks might be 24 to 30 weeks. But, anytime I'm, prepping an athlete and stuff, I'm planning those, if I think that it's going to take 20 weeks for somebody to get in contest shape, cool, I'm tacking on another 4 to 5 for those diet breaks, or just unplanned life stuff that we don't have control over. Or potentially, you do that and everything goes to plan, their diet breaks, they end up dropping some weight and everything is still moving down the line. Now you've got 4 to 5 weeks to reverse diet into a show, or kind of just sit around to wait and trial and error some stuff with, potential refeeds, things like that. But yeah, that's
I like the idea of tacking a few extra weeks on there. I think people, before they ever even approach a contest prep coach, can kind of reverse engineer this themselves, and they can say, all right, let me do some basic math. What body fat do I need to get down to? What's my current body weight? What's my current body fat? How much do I have to lose? Okay, can I sustain a 1% body weight loss for 20 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever it is with zero hiccups? And will I be lean enough then? Because if you diet for 20 weeks and you lose 1% of your body weight every single week with zero hiccups, no refeeds, no diet breaks, nothing like that, and you're still not going to be lean enough, you're still not going to be at that target body weight and body fat percentage, quite frankly, you're just not ready. You're not ready to prep. You need to use some other sort of strategy, a mini cut, maintenance period, and then an actual prep.
And then Paul, I didn't know if you were going to answer that question as far as timeline for how long you would diet somebody, but I did want to go back to, how to decide if someone's actually, ready or going to be lean enough. But I wanted to see if you were going to answer that first.
Got it, man. I mean, honestly, I really like that 20 to 24 week period anyway. Um, just make sure that there's enough time, like you guys said, with expected things, or maybe some people hold body fat differently to where it's deceiving. And you might think somebody only has 25 or 30 pounds, but it ends up being 40 or 45, you know? But yeah, man. Yeah, that's all really I got to say on that. I think you guys nailed it.
More times than not, I think that is the case where people think they have to lose 30 pounds and then they end up losing 45 to actually get into. And one thing that really irks me is when people on Instagram post a picture of someone else or themselves and they're like, "Hey, how many weeks out do you think I am?" Or "How many weeks until I'm ready?" It's like, who the fuck cares? You diet until you are ready, and then you are ready, and then you get on stage.
And if
I
you want,
wanted to throw this out there too. This is something I think I got from Alberto because when you do lean body mass estimations at a higher body fat, like they're just not going to be accurate. And you lose glycogen and you're retaining less fluid. Your intramuscular sort of triglyceride stores get smaller, all kinds of stuff. Uh, and to already just sort of assume like, okay, for every pound loss, for every 5 pounds loss, go ahead and estimate a pound of lean body mass loss. You may not actually lose a pound of lean body mass, but you're probably going to have a more accurate depiction of like how much mass you actually have, you know?
yeah, and speaking on Alberto too, what I was about to say, for some of those people you were talking about, oh no, you probably have another 10, 15 to lose. I know he's got a post. It might be way back on the page, but you'll find it if you look for it. And you can see where he's sitting at like, I don't know, like 175 or something like that. And then he posts a picture side by side. And if you just looked at the first one, you'd be like, oh, he's ready. He's peeled. He posts another picture. He's either like 10 to 20 pounds lighter.
Like
And he's just peeled out of
163.
his bone. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, shoot, I didn't know that could come off. And it's like, yeah, there's fat tucked in all those little fibers and pockets and valleys you got going on there.
Here's a good social media metric for you guys of when you're actually ready. When your friends and your family are hyping you up, telling you look good, you've got about 8 to 10 weeks left. When complete strangers are coming out of the woodwork on Instagram to be like, "What the fuck? You look insane, dude. What's going on?" You've probably got another 2 to 4 weeks left. When people are genuinely concerned for your health, like they see you in public and people are like crossing the road so they're not on the same side as the sidewalk, then you're probably pretty close to ready.
My
Yeah,
grandma
I
called
remember.
my mom, like, what is Cameron doing? I think he's sick. He might have an eating disorder. Like, I was like, oh, that's what they do.
And I remember our very first diet too. I mean, obviously, people at the gym aren't seeing like maybe the fat on my lower back or my glutes or my hams or anything like that. But they'd see me in the gym and they'd be like, "Dude, you look like you're about 3 weeks out." And I'm like, "Bro, I'm 15 pounds out right now, probably if I realistically wanted to step on shredded, So
Dude,
I like,
at the gym, if people will still talk to you, you're not ready. When you know you're ready is when people don't even approach you. They look at you and they're like, that guy doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want any sort of conversation. He looks like he has serious mental issues. That's when you know you're pretty close to ready. How about, all right, so moving along.
Quick.
What?
I was going to go back really quick to the start of that
Oh my
question,
God.
just because I think it's something that's important that people need to hear too. When someone comes to you and they're asking, or you're deciding, like, are they going to be lean enough? One of the things I look at is, what have you been doing in the last 6 months? A lot of people will try and start a prep and they've already been dieting. And it's like, yo, you've got every symptom that somebody would call, metabolic damage, which is really just a symptom of dieting. But, I think we saw a rule of, a 4-to-1 ratio of surplus to deficit. And, that's kind of really, really at the high end of things. But realistically, I would like, if someone's just dieted, I would like at least that amount of time in a surplus, maybe even 25% more, before starting another diet and actually being ready to do that.
dude, that happens to me all the time, dude. And people really hate my answer because I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, we can pick a show. And then I get more information on what their macros were, how much cardio they're doing. And I'm like, yo, pick one 30 weeks from now. I want some time to get your food up. I want to pull that cardio down. And honestly, I really would like more time than that. But obviously, you're hungry to do a show, and let's see if we can make this happen, you know? But
Yeah.
So let me rattle off
Ava's
some
wiping her ass
like
on the carpet, bro.
Stop.
I'm gonna rattle off some like mental and psychology sides of things about being to do a contest prep, and you guys can kind of just pick one that you like, agree with, comment, or add some more if you'd like. So the first one that I took note of was how much do you actually enjoy your current bodybuilding training? So how much are you enjoying your training right now? Because those last 2 months when your body fat is almost completely gone, I promise you, you will not like your training as much. And if you don't like it now at a high body fat, you're just not even going to want to go to the gym, and you're going to sandbag it, and your results are going to greatly suffer. The second one that I took down was how do you feel about your current diet and your nutrition plan? If you're currently binging, overeating, even undereating, or unhappy with your nutritional plan at this moment, it's not time for you to prep. You need to get all of that stuff squared away. The third one that I wrote down was how are your relationships right now? So your friends, family, significant others, coworkers, things like that. Are all of your relationships in check? Because a contest prep, a successful contest prep is going to require a lot of social support along the way. So if you're constantly fighting with your significant other, if you don't have a good relationships with your friends at the moment, maybe you and your training partner are on the rocks or something like that, I would wait until you have a better social support base. The last one is work situation. Work is one that derails preps all the time. So what is your current work situation like? Are you settled into a good job? Do you know that you're going to be able to keep that job or keep that position throughout the entirety of prep? Because losing your job is a great way to cut a prep short. And the last part of the job situation is like, are you on track for a big promotion where your work or how productive you are at work is going to benefit your life outside of bodybuilding? So if you are in a high stressful situation at work where you need to perform at your best, you need to be mentally checked in, I would say don't prep. And now those are the only ones that I had. I'll open it up to you guys.
Those are solid too.
Can I jump in on the work thing real quick?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
What irritates the living piss out of me, dude, is when somebody really wants to prep and, you know, maybe they start their prep and then you find out that they have to pick and choose between like sleep and cardio, or they don't have time for cardio or all of that. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you need to sleep. Like, for every aspect of your performance, to body fat loss, your appetite, your well-being, like sleep is very important for your progress, you know, and optimizing every aspect of that dieting phase. And yeah, that's just a huge thing I really want people to think about in terms of what their schedule's like, because there's just some shit you got to do. And there's other things that you don't want to sacrifice if you really want to do your best. All right, I'll let you hit it, Cam.
I think I lost track of what I was going to say with it, or I think you either probably covered what I was going to say. But yeah, I guess we can start back up at the top with, you know, do you currently enjoy your training? I know, speaking from my own experience, those last 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to feel small and the weakest you probably ever felt, unless you're, you know, coming into a reverse diet. But even if that case, it's going to be the 4 weeks before the reverse diet that you're going to be feeling terrible, you know, unless it's just a, you know, special case scenario where somebody's just a genetic freak, or maybe it's their first time, you know, going on cycle and being enhanced or getting into training, which I don't recommend you even being in contest prep anyways, if that's the case. Yeah, your strength and everything is going to be taking a hit, and training is going to be pretty brutal. So yeah, you know, you gotta love it. It's kind of like, you know, playing high school sports, and you know, I had an offer for a scholarship to go play college football, but I knew at the time in high school, you know, I was getting pretty burned out with it. I didn't have that same love for it anymore. And I knew if I went to college for it, they were going to just absolutely break me down, and I would be just straight miserable. And, you know, if you're miserable and not having fun, then don't even compete or be a bodybuilder anyways. It's not like bodybuilding makes you a better person. It's not like we're any better than anybody else because, you know, we can put on muscle or get super lean. Like, we just like doing that, you know? So
Yeah, one other note on training that I've seen from people is like I've watched people go into a prep. It's very obvious from kind of what they're posting on social media, their attitude towards training in general, that they don't really like the training process. And then they get really lean and they hate it even more. And then by the time contest prep is over, they're so burnt out on bodybuilding training, bodybuilding nutrition, that they just completely leave it behind. They stop training, they absolutely go off the rails with their nutrition, and they blow up. And we know that that has negative ramifications on your health in general. And then they just say, hey, look at bodybuilding, the training, the nutrition, all that. Look what it did to me. Look at how it transformed my body for the worst. It's just a terrible sport in general. That's something grinds my gears.
or they come back 2.5 months later after not doing anything and like, hey, I'm ready to do another show. And you're like,
Yeah.
you're absolutely not. You're ready to maintain.
So since we're talking about the psychological aspect, man, I really wish people, and I think maybe it comes with time or it's just certain personality types. I really wish people would master sort of the art of just not giving a fuck, you know? Like every day you wake up, you have one job. That's to follow the plan and execute the plan the best you can. You shouldn't be worried about, like, you shouldn't step on the scale and like give a fuck. Oh, you didn't lose a pound today, or you didn't, you didn't lose weight as expected this week, or who's competing with me. I'm gonna get on Instagram and psych myself out and worry about all this shit that you can't control. And it's just like, dude, like, or maybe somebody binges and they're like, what are we gonna do about this? What are we blah, blah? And it's like, I'll let you know, but like, don't fucking worry about it. Like, like, here's the plan, execute.
I said, even with things going on now, like the coronavirus situation with shows being canceled, it's like, like if you have a good coach that cares about you as an athlete, he's going to know when to pull the trigger on a show. And, it's like, well, like I think I put something on my story the other day. What's the worst thing that could happen? The show gets canceled and you're like 2 or 3 weeks out. And maybe you don't do another show at all. Cool, you get to practice a reverse diet, and you get some cool pictures of you being lean and learn something out of it. Like,
yeah, I mean, dude, like for me, my biggest thing coming into this prep is just like, I have one job. Like, it's not to be as strong as I can be on stage. Yeah, I want to look out for my performance, but I'm not going to freak out if I get weaker. That's part of dieting. If I have a week where the weight loss wasn't expected, I'm not going to freak out about it, because worst thing that happens, okay, I don't do that show, or I do a later show. Like, who shows up that day, I can't help that. Like, some people are freaks, and probably a freak is going to show up. It's just people psych themselves out and they give themselves so much anxiety and so much stress, and it doesn't make anything easier. It just makes you panic on the inside, and
I think
it's just not good for you, man.
Social is a huge part of it too.
Huh?
Social media is a huge part of it too.
Exactly.
People spend so much time. They look at like the hashtag for their show, whatever it is, like hashtag NPC Florida State or something like that, and they're looking at who's hashtagging it, and oh my God, this guy's gonna show up, this guy or this girl's competing, like how am I ever gonna beat them? It's like, one, who fucking cares to begin with? Handle your business, show up the best you can. And two, how is that going to help? How is it going to help you at all to know? So when I was prepping for the Florida State Championship, there was a guy, his name was Dylan Williamson. He got second at nationals that year, and I had followed him on Instagram, and I saw that he was doing the same show as me. And I had a friend ask me, like, aren't you worried about like him showing up and beating you? And I was like, no, I'm not worried. I know he's going to show up and beat me. He's going to kick the shit out of me, but I don't fucking care, because I'm just going to handle my business, and I'm going to show up shredded. And when the overall pose down comes, I'm going to find that motherfucker, and I'm going to pose next to him, and I'm like, all right, what the hell do I need to work on? And that's because I genuinely enjoyed the sport. I think other people enjoy winning. They enjoy the attention. They enjoy the trophies, the axes, the swords, more than they actually enjoy the process. And I know people like that aren't going to last very long in the sport because they don't enjoy it. It's not fun. It's like it's like what you said with football. Like you were just getting burnt on it. It wasn't fun, and you're not going to last very long in that situation.
Yeah.
If there was just one, like I wish everybody who is competing or is thinking about competing, like I wish they would just at least watch that part because nothing drives me more crazy, you know?
And like it's going to make for an easier prep, of course, but even for the coach too, it's going to make things a lot easier on him. You know, it's going to be just so much more clear with him guiding you, her guiding you. You know, it's going to give you a better result in the end. And at the end of the day, too, you know, you're doing what you can to be your best, and that's going to be a big part of it. It's, you know, not giving a fuck about stupid stuff like waking up watery or bloated. Like that makes me so mad. It's one thing I'm not talking about like if someone has like crazy mess up gut health, because most don't anyways. But
Just give them kimchi.
somebody like will like text me and be like, "Oh, I'm super bloated today," and I'm like, "Oh man, I bet that feels a lot better than being super starved." Like somebody will text me and be like, "Oh man, I'm super watery today," and you know, given that it's not, you know, the day before or whatever, I'm like, "Oh man, well it's really awesome you're not stepping on stage in 3 hours." Like I don't care. Like if it's not like some drug thing that needs to be taken care of, like you're gonna be watery, you're gonna be flat, you know, like get your opinions from your coach, and those are really gonna be the only ones that matter. In special case circumstance from maybe some others that are gonna be very experienced, and you know that's not gonna be as many people as you think it is.
Sure.
One other thing about doing this, if you really don't enjoy it, is kind of the last bullet point I made here, and that is like the monetary concerns of if you're ready to compete or not. Like, let's just get this completely cleared up right now. Whether you are natural, enhanced, or somewhere in the middle, you're half natty, competing is a very expensive endeavor. You need to have your finances squared away before you pull the trigger on competing. And I kind of listed out some of the expenses here, and I'll just run down the list here, and you guys can tell me if I forgot anything. So your show registration is going to run you anywhere from $70 to $120, and that's going to be per division. So if you want to do true novice, let's say you're doing classic physique, and you're doing bodybuilding, so you're running through all of those divisions. True novice classic physique, classic, and then the same thing for bodybuilding. That is 6 different divisions. So 6 times 70 times 120, anywhere from $420 to $700 just on registration. So we've just registered for the show. That's it. The next is a tan. Tans are anywhere from $100 to $150 depending on who's doing the tan. That's if you're getting it by the people at the show. Let me just make a little note. If you are looking to do your own tan and it's your first competition, do not fucking do it. Let the pros do it, because you'll fuck it up and you'll look like an idiot. For women, makeup and hair, I got a quote from my trusty Jimble. She says it's over $200 at least for makeup and hair. Your hotel, if you're staying at the hotel, 1 to 2 nights, 120 to 250, depending on how nice the hotel is. Your NPC card is 100. Drugs, if you're going the enhanced route, most contest prep cycles are going to start somewhere around $1,000, depending on dosages, compounds, etc., and go up from there. Your food throughout the entire prep, I put it at somewhere around $500 a month. $400 to $500 a month for a 4 to 5 month prep. You're anywhere between $2,000 to $2,500 of food. Again, for women, shoes, posing suit, robe, 500 or more. And then I put a note for myself at the bottom, fucking up the hotel sheets, because literally every single time I've competed, I've gotten my tan at the hotel, or I got my tan all over the sheets, and they billed me somewhere around $75. I didn't total that all up.
I just did, but hey, man, I guess you plan on working for free because you didn't even put coaches' fees in there.
I did not put coaching in there. Holy shit. Yeah. I guess when you're a master coach and you coach yourself, you don't have to worry about that.
So
Or you just coach your pals.
This is not including a coaching fee, but you know, depending on, of course, things can be, or I guess too, because drugs, you know, if you're enhancing female, you're going to spend less, but then you've also got your shoes, robe, makeup, and stuff. So I guess male or female, given you're not even traveling out of state and have to get a flight and pay for Ubers and stuff like that, total cost is going to be around $3,900 to $4,500. So
Yeah, and that's without coaching. So if you tack on, we'll throw my 6-month rate on there at 1050. So if tack an extra 1050 on there as well for coaching. So yeah, and one thing that does make me pretty sad is when people bankrupt themselves for a contest prep, and then at the end of it, they realize they don't even like bodybuilding. So you're 5K in the hole, and you didn't even have fun.
well, another thing too that
GoFundMe's for.
Another thing that irks me too is you get people in contest prep, and if they're an enhanced athlete, you've laid out their protocol, and they're like, "Hey man, like I ran out of this." One, you need to be making sure that you're taking care of and have on hand what you need, or you're getting in contact with whoever you do and getting it before you actually run out. But like, what do you do? Or like, I don't have money to get this right now. Can we do something else? Like, maybe, but probably not. And also, when people, they want to compete, but they don't have the money for getting blood work done. It's like, no, like you don't like if you work with me, you don't get to go buy the drugs and use them without paying for blood work because you can't afford it. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
you guys nailed it, man. You guys nailed it. I want to backtrack for a minute too. I feel kind of awkward with this because I feel like it's way too late. But and going back to the "Are you ready" thing outside of the money stuff, there was one point I did want to bring up, and I don't think we touched on it, but in the off season and the months leading up, like, did you do your fucking job? Like, were you committed before this? Were you, eating your food, doing your training, or like, is this show just to get you back in the groove? Like, oh, I want to get fit again. I haven't worked out more than like once or twice a week in the past like 3 to 6 months or since my last show. Those are like some of the least fun clients to work with, I think.
and then one of the I'll kind of note off of that too, especially from a dietary side of things. You shouldn't be so food focused from a previous diet at the time that you're wanting to start a prep. I think there's something very, very valuable about, either as a coach allowing your athletes, maybe a few weeks or month leading into a show, like, we're in a good spot. I want you to have a day this week where you don't track anything. I want to see how food focused and how like obsessed you are. Can you go a day of just being a normal person and hop on the scale the next day and either hold the same weight or potentially be down? Or are you going to be up 4 to 5 pounds? Because if you're up 4 to 5 pounds from having an untracked day before you start a contest prep, that just shows me that mentally and hunger hormone wise, potentially, depending on how lean they are, you're not ready for 4 to 5 months of dieting because you're already food focused.
As you're talking about this, Elias texts us. My weight has jumped 6.5 pounds the last 4 days.
Yeah, I think it's some of the most successful clients that I have nutritionally when they jump into the prep are the ones that tell me like, yo, like I hate food right now. I don't want to look at it. Like I want to eat some spinach. That sounds so good. Like Anthony. Anthony's one that like in the off season, he'll eat so much cereal. Like the first couple weeks of prep, he'll just send me pictures. He'll be like, oh, salad again. I'm like, it's 6 a.m. Why the fuck are you eating a salad right now, you weirdo? He's like, I can't see another Lucky Charm or I'll the flashbacks. They'll get me.
Like realistically, I think the most like optimal spot potentially like mentally for an athlete is going into a diet and being excited to diet just because it's going to make your life easier at first.
Yeah.
Like I know that's what we've gotten in my off season with Paul. I'm like, dude, I don't even really care to be leaner. I just want to diet because it's going to make my life easier. Like not eating as much. And
I love that point too. Like, after so many months of eating more food, increasing food, gaining, Like I hit a point where like the thought of eating chicken makes me want to throw up. And then you get 10 weeks, 8 weeks into dieting, and you're like, I fucking love chicken and rice. Give me more chicken and rice, damn it. Like
And it's so simple because all you have to do when your food is still so high and your hunger's not there, you can still eat those more, calorically, dense foods. And as food starts to get low and you start to get hungry, maybe you pull out a bagel for fucking like a piece of Ezekiel bread. And, you just start subbing things, have the same amount of volume, feel like you're eating just as much, and you're down a couple hundred calories per day.
you just reminded me of a big thing for me on this diet was about 3 or 4 weeks in, I sort of made the decision. Like I was like, no more fucking Yasso bars, no more Halo Top. I was just like, I'm eating real fucking food. Like this, I'm not gonna get 14 weeks into this diet and be starving because I wake up and my first thought is, let me have a Yasso bar. Like,
Eat boring. Be
Eat boring.
be exhausted of eating for as long as you can.
Yep, for sure. All right, and I think that's where we're going to wrap it up today. We're coming up on that point where it's long enough that people will not even make it to this point. But if you did make it to this point, hey, thanks for sticking around with your boys. Drop a comment below if you feel like we missed anything or if you have anything you want to add, and we will get back to you on that. As always, subscribe, like, do all that, YouTube shit. Make us YouTube rich. We're trying to be YouTube rich, right? I'm trying to be. I don't know about you guys. I'm not passing any of that ad revenue down. You guys got to
gave up on that dream at like 23.
You guys got to look at your contracts. I get all the ad revenue.
Brought it up. Paul was disappointed every time.
So, are you ready to compete? Now you know if you are or not. As always, guys, stay gifted. Thanks for watching. And there's Paul. My arms are bigger than Paul's. Oh, God, Cam, you ugly.